They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we are talking to Ashley Mays. Ashley has been married for 8 years, and she and her husband have 2 boys. When her youngest was 9 weeks old, their lives were turned upside down when she was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. So Ashley, I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about your story.
Thank you for having me.
So when you messaged me about this topic, I was really interested in hearing this because I think it can be rare, or maybe we don't hear it as much about younger women having breast cancer, and especially when you have a new baby. So I would love to hear your story and why this is close to your heart.
All right. So like you said, when my youngest was 9 weeks old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. When he was around 4 weeks old, my husband went back to work after paternity leave, and I had noticed a lump in my breast, and I was breastfeeding at the time. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that I have mastitis, like not a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal, but like, whatever, we'll take care of it. So I called my OB and they had me come in, to be seen or whatever. They're like, yeah, it's probably mastitis. They treated it like that, but the lump didn't go away. So they sent me for an ultrasound, which led to a biopsy, and then I was diagnosed about a month later. So it was a really crazy time, and I feel like you don't hear about it very often, but it's more common than people realize. I personally have connected with like at least a handful of women in my state and like across the country who were diagnosed around the same time I was. So around the same age, and also when their baby was a newborn. So It's been really crazy. Yeah, because I never heard of that before. And I think like even when I was going through treatment, I would joke that I was like the infant in the room because it was all people like in their 60s or 70s. My husband, like on the first day, was like, oh, try to make a friend, at chemo today. And I was like, it's all old men. Like, no. But it is like, it does happen. So really crazy.
How old are you?
I am 31. So I was 30 when I was diagnosed. So.
Wow, that is really young. But like you said, you have connected with other women who have gone through this. So how big was the lump, if you don't mind me asking? Because I know women are wondering, like, how concerned should I be? Like, what?
So mine was very large. It was like 5 centimeters. Oh, wow. Some of the women though that I've connected with, they're a lot smaller than that. But mine was very noticeable. Like you could see it just looking at my breast.
Okay.
But other women, and I was stage 3, like you said. So it definitely had progressed pretty quickly, and it was a large mass. But like sometimes it's the size of a pea. I mean, it can be really tiny.
How old was your other son when you had a little baby, and then how old was your other son during this time?
He was 4.
Okay.
So this was in May 2020, and then he turned 5 in September 2020. Okay. So yeah, he was about 4.5, which was really hard because he was at the age of like, we couldn't, like with the baby, we obviously didn't need to explain things to him. He was so little. But Luke was old enough to understand what was going on and understand that like I didn't have hair and that I was really sick. And so it was really hard how to like figuring out how to approach that situation.
Oh, I'm sure. So talk to me about being a mom of two young kids and how having this serious illness has shaped you as a woman as you have been this young mom. Like, can you talk about that transformation for you?
Yeah, so I think first of all, when I found out I was pregnant with my second, I was terrified. I was like, how am I going to do this? So my husband works on the weekends and I'm a teacher, so I work through the week. So a lot of Saturdays, it was just like me and Luke. And I was like, well, I'm going to be outnumbered when he's at work. And then the pandemic hit. And so it started right around the time in our area. Um, it started right around the time that I went on maternity leave. And then I'm a teacher. So after that, like, we taught from home. So like I did maternity leave when I went back to work, I taught from home. So I went from being a working mom of one to being a stay-at-home working mom of two. And that was just such a crazy transition. Like going from one to two is so crazy. Especially because they both need different things but at the same time. And so if my husband was at work, like I don't know. So that transition alone was crazy. And then throwing in like we're in the middle of a global pandemic. So I had so much support when I brought Luke home and no support at all when I brought home Ford.
Mm,
So figuring that out, like I I mean Chris and our marriage definitely was strengthened through that because we really had to learn to rely on just each other. But then once I was diagnosed, we had to have some other help come in just because he had to continue working to carry our health insurance and I could not take care of them by myself. But all of this has just really changed how I look at parenting and life in general. I wrote about this like I don't know, over the summer. But with Luke, we did swim lessons with him. And like the mommy and me swim lessons, like you have to be in the pool, obviously. And I hated it. Like I hated it. I would joke with my husband, like, I hate getting in a swimsuit postpartum, being around all of these other like moms and dads. And with Ford, like it just changed how I looked at that time. I was like, wow, I get to do this with him. Like, I get to have this one on one time with him. I could very well like not be alive right now, but I
mm,
get to be here and I get to do this. And even if I feel like I look bad in a swimsuit, like whatever. So I think it just really transitioned me to appreciate those moments more and not be like dreading them.
mm.
Just realizing that life is short and I could very well not be here with my boys. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's like the best example I can think of.
Yeah. So it really gave you a different perspective on what was important to you and made
Yeah.
you less self-conscious about what other people might be thinking about you versus I'm just going to be happy and enjoy this special time with my son, whether
hmm
whatever it may be.
Yeah. Like he doesn't care that I have scars because now it's like you can visibly see scars from my surgeries and from my port and everything like that. And I think like Ford doesn't care, like he just cares that like he's getting one-on-one time with me and that I'm in the pool with him. Like he doesn't care what I look like in a swimsuit or um that everyone can see my scars or that I still had really short hair. Like none of that matters to him. So
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that perspective. So how are you doing now as you are moving forward? Tell us about your health.
so it has been super crazy, like such a long journey. So I started treatment in July 2020 and didn't finish until February of 2021. So I am like coming up on 1 year since I finished chemo. But still, I mean, it hasn't been very long since I finished treatment in general. So after doing therapy, like with a therapist, and then like physical therapy and occupational therapy, I'm pretty much back to my normal self. I went back to teaching in person. So last year I took a leave of absence. So this fall I went back to teaching in person, and it's just so crazy to think about the difference that a year can make, because this time last year I was still going through chemo, and now this year I am working all day teaching 21 first graders and then coming home and still having enough energy to parent my children and like make dinner and do all the mom things. So I feel so much better now than I did last year.
That's so
And
awesome.
yeah, I mean, it took a lot of hard work to get here. Um, but yeah, I'm just so amazed with what my body can do now compared to, and like last year. I'm super proud of what my body did last year too, fighting cancer, going through chemo and surgery and radiation. But now I'm just like, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love hearing that. That's like when you were so sick last year, your strength was evident, but this year it's like, wow, look how strong I am. Look how strong what I have overcome, what I've come through. And like you said, you're able to teach, like do your chosen profession and then come home and take care of your kids. That's really awesome. As you've connected with these other women online, have you seen some common struggles that you all have gone through? Like, what has been a common thread of motherhood and going through a cancer diagnosis?
I think definitely that guilt of just not being able to care for your children. So there is a girl that I've become like pretty close with, and she actually tested positive for one of the genetic mutations. So because of that, she has a higher chance of like developing a different type of cancer. So she has actually gone through like a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy and within like 1 year. And so she has talked about just like that guilt of, not being able to take care of your children. And I can totally relate to that, needing that help and just barely being able to take care of yourself. So I think that's really hard. And I think that isn't just cancer. Like there's a lot of chronic illnesses out there that parents face that could limit like what you can do with your children. And also like going along with that, just like not having the energy to get out and do things with your kids. Like last year, I used to always think, like, oh, when Luke turns 5, like that's such a big milestone. I want to have like a big party, whatever. Well, obviously we were going through a global pandemic, so a big party like wasn't an option. But when he turned 5, I had had chemo like 3 days before.
Mm.
And one of my friends, we have this little miniature train in our area, and she had purchased basically like a private hour, or like not hour, but a private ride. So we got like so many laps around the track or whatever. And I was like, that would be perfect to do for his birthday. Like money is tight. Like, let's go do that. I literally had to like pull myself out of bed to even be present in that moment with him on his 5th birthday. And I hated that. And I know a lot of other parents feel that. And that is definitely, I think, like a common struggle that we all face when we're going through something like cancer or another chronic illness. And it's a crappy feeling, to not be able to be present with your kids. But then in the back of your mind, you're like, is this the last birthday I'll have with them, or, whatever. And so that was really hard. I remember sitting down to wrap his presents with my husband and just like bawling, because I was like, I feel like crap. I want to, be there and be present with him, but I also just want to like curl up and sleep all day.
Yeah,
And that's so hard.
that is really hard. I
I feel
think,
like that's something we all talk about, like just that guilt, that mom guilt. I mean, we all face mom guilt anyways, but it just is like multiplied.
yeah, no, that is, I can definitely see that. So what have you found to help combat that mom guilt? Like, are there tools that you've discovered that help you, or like an inner dialogue that you have with yourself to help combat that feeling?
I feel like the biggest thing that helped me honestly was therapy.
Yeah.
So, we have, and I don't know if this is like a nationwide program or like if it's called something different, but we have parents as teachers in my area, and we have done that since Luke was a baby. So like we've continued with Ford, And they started something new where with new moms or like newly postpartum moms or whatever, they're really taking postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety very seriously. And so, with your permission, they'll give you a survey kind of. And if you score a certain number on that, they take it back to their team and they've partnered with an organization that will give moms free therapy for so long.
That's awesome.
So, because I was postpartum, and I actually scored like right on the line where they were like, you could do it or you couldn't do it. But when I took it, like I was newly diagnosed. So I hadn't even like scratched the surface of what I was going to go through. They were like, we feel like because you're going through this cancer diagnosis, like you should definitely do this. So we're pushing you through. So I was able to do that for several months. And I think that was one thing that really helped me, being able to talk through like all of the different situations I was going through. And I got to the point where I truly was like, I cannot control what's going on with my health. I cannot control if the cancer progresses or if my body like reacts to the chemo or whatever. Like I can't control that. And so that like inner dialogue really helped me to be able to be like present in the moment with them and just enjoy those moments. So I think, yeah, therapy 100% was super helpful. And also medication. And I feel like, we're in the same like Her View from Home community. And I feel like that is something that's talked about a lot through the blog, is that like it is okay to do therapy and be on medication and still be a Christian. Like
Mhm.
you can do both. And so that's been really helpful. So those two things are like the biggest tools that I have in my toolbox to help me. But yeah, I mean, mom guilt is real for everyone. And so I just try to control what I can and then tell myself, I can't control certain situations that I can't control. And I think it's easier said than done.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yeah. I
it
love
has been helpful.
Yeah, I love that you talked about, you just very honestly like, hey, I went to therapy and hey, medication has helped me. I think hearing that other people have used those routes very and successfully and honestly talk about it can help so much. Because I know a few years ago I had a collective blog and I had some women talk about how they were had depression during their pregnancies. And sometimes
Hmm.
you only hear about like postpartum depression, but I had never heard people talk about being depressed like while they were pregnant. And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that is so brave that they wrote about that for my website. And I was so excited to publish their stories. And then I got pregnant again and I had really bad depression. And
Hmm.
because they shared their story, I was like, okay, they were brave enough to go to their doctor and say, I'm not doing well mentally, or I'm struggling and I think I need support. Those stories were like the hand on my back that guided me to my own doctor and care provider and saying, I'm not doing okay. So I
Yeah.
think it's so important to hear the stories like what you're sharing, saying, hey, this is what helped me. And then another mom can hear that and say, wow, I'm going through difficult situation or a chronic illness or a cancer diagnosis and I'm really struggling. And because you said that, then other women can hear it and be like, I'm not alone and I can take a step too in that direction.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, other moms or just other women in general saying that is what helped me to like be more aware with my second pregnancy, even before the cancer diagnosis. But um, I had a postpartum depression really bad with my first, and I had no idea what was going on. I just feel like it wasn't, he's 6 now. So I feel like it wasn't talked about as much. Like, I feel like the most that it was talked about when I had him was when you go in for your like 6-week postpartum visit and they're like, are you feeling depressed? Like that's basically all they say. Now I feel like it's talked about more. I still feel like we have so much work to do in that area, but so I had no idea that that's what I was going through.
Yeah.
And then it took years for me to figure out. So when I got actually before I got pregnant with my second is that's when I started medication because I was having anxiety so bad, like my whole body was tense. I had just graduated from grad school and I was like, what is going on? Like, I have no idea what's going on with my body right now. I thought something was like wrong, like with my like head or neck or something. And so I went to the doctor and he was like, you are so tense right now. Um, so when I got pregnant with my second, like I talked to my OB because of people like coming forward and saying like what postpartum depression looks like. I was like, okay, I now realize that I suffered from that with my first, and I don't want to do that again. So can I continue on this medication through my pregnancy and then postpartum? And she was like, absolutely. And then afterwards, she was like, all right, now we're going to like monitor you and see if we need to like up the medication at any point. And postpartum didn't really do that to me, but after the cancer diagnosis, I couldn't sleep at night. I was constantly crying. I was constantly thinking like, what if I die? What if I leave my boys here? And so at that point she was like, okay, like let's double the medication.
Mhm.
And so helpful. So just like knowing that she was on my side and like checking in on me periodically was super helpful. And yeah, like you said, hearing other moms talk about it because with my first, I was going through some stuff personally. My aunt had passed away around the time Luke was like 8 months old. So to me, I was like, well, I'm just going through a lot right now
Mhm.
and had no idea that there was something more than that. And so I'm so glad that women talk about it now because it's scary.
It is scary and you feel very alone and you wonder, am I
Hmm.
normal? Am I just a bad mom? Like, am I bad at this? Maybe I made a bad decision. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And I think your
Yeah.
thoughts can just get so you just go round and round and round and round and round, and then you're just trying to survive on little sleep and learning
Yeah.
about, caring for this small human who needs you for everything. And you don't know that, hey, there is support out there, or there is joy on the other side of this dark time,
Hmm.
because you can get caught in thinking it's always going to be this way.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part about social media is it can be a great tool. It can be a great way to like connect with people, but you're seeing their highlight reel. And so I actually had a family member when her daughter is 6 months younger than Luke, so around the same age as my oldest. She had said that there were times when like her baby was crying all the time, and she was like, "What am I doing wrong? Like everyone looks like they're doing just fine." You scroll through social media and it's like, "Oh, they're fine, like their babies are happy and whatever." When in reality, they could have posted like a picture of the one moment that day that was calm, and you
Yeah.
just don't realize that.
Mhm.
So then you do feel like you're alone. You're like, what am I doing wrong? Um, so it can be so hard and so isolating when you're not hearing about it.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to talk about things
Hmm.
really honestly. And thank you for doing that, because I think your story is really important. And I think that sometimes we can go through things that you never anticipated. I'm sure you were just like, whoa, I never thought at 30 I would get breast cancer. Like, that
Yeah,
wasn't on your radar. And
no.
especially having two young children to care for and going through this intense personal trial, and it's probably going to still affect your life for years to come, with like
Yeah.
rechecks and chemo side effects and all the things that come along with a cancer diagnosis. So that's part
Yeah,
of
it
your
was
story.
very unexpected. I joke with people that because a lot of people will be like, oh, you must have been so nervous after your biopsy. And I was like, I was a little upset that day. And I think more so because I was just kind of annoyed that I had to have it done and couldn't lift the baby. Um, I had not one worry waiting for results, not one. Like, had a completely normal day the day I found out, worked from home, did all of my meetings, whatever, like got irritated with my husband because he didn't see my text that I wanted him to bring a drink to me outside while I was doing a meeting, completely normal day. Totally blindsided when the surgeon called. Totally blindsided. Never in a million years did I think that would be my life
Yeah.
ever. Like, it was so crazy. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I'm sure you're still trying to process in some ways. But
Oh, yeah.
when you think back, like, this is my story now, what do you want to do with your story? Like, when you look at that story and you're like, okay, as I'm accepting this path that I walked and am still walking, where do you see yourself going? And maybe we could lead into where you're going with your writing, because I know you have some social media things you do.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning, and I think part of it was because I was staying home and wasn't working at the time and had, like I took a whole school year off. I thought that I wanted to like put a lot of work into writing about it and blogging about it and stuff like that. And now I think like I definitely will share it. Like when I see an opportunity like this where I can talk about it, I totally love to do that. But now I'm like, I just want to feel normal,
Mhm.
like I
Yeah.
don't want it to feel like it's consuming me. So I have taken like a little break from writing about it,
Mhm.
just to get back to teaching. And I mean, that alone, like the transition going back to work and Luke starting kindergarten and Ford starting daycare, it's been crazy. So I think that, like individually, you really just have to think about like what you want to do with that. And I think it's so important for me to share like what to look for so that women don't ignore the symptoms of cancer. And I totally still do that, but I try to just live like a normal life now. And like I said, when I see opportunities where someone is like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone to write about pandemic life," I'm like, "Okay, like I'll do that." Or like, "Hey, I'm looking for someone, to talk about different things in motherhood." I'm like, "I can do that." But I try to like, kind of split my time and get away from that life a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
before I was like, "Oh, I totally want to like start a blog about it." And I did that. And I still have that out on the internet of, if someone texts me and is like, "Hey, I know someone who's going through chemo, like what do you suggest if I'm putting together a gift basket for them?" I'm like, "Here's my blog post about it." But now I'm just trying to make our life as normal as possible.
Mhm.
But I mean, like you said, there's still things that will like carry on for a long time. I still have to see my oncologist, unfortunately, But yeah, just trying to live a normal life now and make things normal for my kids.
Yeah. I totally understand that you had this thing that happened, and it's a big part of who you are, but it's not the whole part of who you are.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that can apply in a lot of situations. Sometimes we can get swallowed up in what's happening around us,
Yeah.
and realizing that we can emerge from that and we don't have to be consumed by the hard time. Like, realizing that you are still there, like your desire to teach and your desire to do the swimming lessons and do all these things, like you
Yeah.
are still there in your life, like finding joy and living. And that's really beautiful. So what would you tell another woman who maybe is starting out on a path like you did, like facing a serious health concern like cancer or maybe a chronic illness diagnosis, and she has young kids? What are one or two things you would tell her?
So I think the first I would say is that it gets better. The first week, I think, at least, I cried all day long, every day. And it was so overwhelming. And I think that unfortunately, there are women out there or men who end up with a terminal diagnosis. And obviously, it does not end the way that we want it to. And they lose their lives very early. But I think even in those situations, the people I know still were able to find joy and spending time with their family. And it's very scary at first, but it does get better. I have so many pictures like that my husband documented of me just enjoying time with my boys, bald head and all, and even though the circumstances were really crappy, we just still found a way to enjoy life. And it definitely got better than those first few weeks. And the second thing I would say is to accept help in whatever form you can get it. And it's hard to tell people what you need. Like, we definitely were so overwhelmed in the beginning when people were like, "What do you need?" We're like, "We don't even know." But we made like an Amazon wish list for like diapers, wipes, and formula. And that was a way that people could help out without stepping foot into our house because we had to be so careful. We accepted like people cleaning our house, which we never thought we would do. Literally, one of my coworkers came and cleaned our house a few different times. But yeah, we just accepted help in any way that we could get it that was safe for our family, whether it was people dropping off food or sending money or gift cards or whatever. And I think you have to like put your pride aside and realize that you cannot do it alone. And so, yeah, those were the two things that were super helpful for me. Just realizing that it does get better, and accepting any help that I could get. And that is what got me through.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your honesty and just, sharing your story, because somebody else is going to be in your shoes. And I hope they hear this, and I hope that they take comfort from what you've shared today.
Thanks. I think that was my biggest thing. Like, unfortunately, people get cancer. It sucks, but it happens. And sometimes they have young kids. So if I can share anything that will be helpful to them, it gives purpose to the pain that we went through. And I hope that it's in any way helpful for them.
So I like to end all the sessions with some rapid fire questions that are just for fun. So, all right. So number 1, which Disney princess would you want to take out for coffee?
Oh, I think maybe Anna.
I love
Frozen.
Anna. She's like so friendly, and she has so much energy, and she's like a fighter. Yeah, I like her too. All right. What's one thing you must have on your nightstand?
My phone charger is like always right there. So my phone and my phone charger.
Yeah, same. What's your go-to treat after the kids go to bed?
I love chocolate cake or anything chocolate.
Chocolate cake is a winner though. You're like,
yeah.
Yes. Okay, heels or flats?
I wear flats Monday through Friday. Hardly ever wear heels. Always
you gotta
flats.
have it for that teacher life, right?
Oh yeah, like if I need to like run or walk up and down the stairs, no heels for me.
Yeah. Last show you binged and loved?
Clickbait on Netflix. Super intense.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
So yeah, I saw so many people talking about it on social media, and I was like, what is this? And I watched it so we were talking about it at work, and some of my coworkers were like, I finished it in one weekend. I was like, okay, I have to watch it. And it is like suspenseful. It keeps you guessing. It's kind of like a murder mystery. So every episode you're like, wait, was that the person who did it? Like, did this person do it? And it's also a pretty quick watch. Like, it's a mini series. So I think there's less than 10 episodes. So perfect.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out. That sounds really
good.
Okay, if you run out of this besides milk, what do you have to get at the store?
I always have to have coffee.
Yeah, that's a necessity. You can't just have like 2 scoops left in the can. You're like, you have to go to the store. Yeah.
No.
Okay, who makes you laugh?
My kids make me laugh every day. They are so funny.
Yeah, that's
cool. And I would say my husband too. Like, just living in a house full of boys, I'm like constantly laughing and constantly like, I cannot believe this is my life.
I know. You're like, what? Texting or talking?
I would say texting, just because it is so hard to have a conversation with little kids.
What are you looking forward to?
I am trying to convince my husband to plan a trip to Disney World. So that is what I'm looking forward to, convincing him that it's time to go to Disney World. He's in the background shaking his head right now. But
no, I hope you succeed. I'm rooting for you.
He's like, "I am not taking the toddler to Disney World." Like, he goes, "You realize when you go on vacation, you have to go out to eat for basically every meal." And we barely make it through, like, one out to eat meal every other week or once a month with the baby.
I will tell you a pro tip is Uber Eats. So you can
Yeah,
order to your hotel room and you can order from any restaurant and then you just eat like in your hotel room. So we have done that many, many times on our trips.
that is
We
such a good idea.
have 5 kids, so taking 5 kids out to eat is insane. And we're like, okay, Uber Eats is for the win for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, last question. Finish this sentence. Motherhood is.
Exciting.
I love that. I love your perspective and I love seeing your smile. I just really love talking to you, Ashley. Yeah.
Well,
Thank
thank
you for
you. This
being
was
here.
super fun. A nice little break from cleaning the house and doing laundry.
Yes. All right. So if you'd love to follow Ashley on Instagram, you can find her at babies and breast cancer. She also has a Facebook page called Babies and Breast Cancer if you'd like to follow her and read her story. Ashley, thanks so much for being here today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.
Yeah, lots of farting and yeah, just all kinds of.
Yes, all the bodily noises. Yeah,
Yes.
I have my husband and 4 boys, so I joke that we live in a frat house or a fart house, whichever way you want to
Yes.
twist the letters.